I'll preface by saying that this is not a conclusive video. This is not a conclusive take, meaning I have a lot of different opinions, and as a human being, I'm still formulating my opinions. So just don't come to me for any authority on what opinion to have. Come to your own conclusions on these kinds of things. By the way, if you want to know what game I'm playing in the background, it is Bomb Rush Cyberpunk. Because this video is so disorganized, I'm not going to heavily edit this video, so I'm just going to play this gameplay footage in the background because I figured, hey, great game to play, totally worth your money. If you like Grand Theft Auto, Tony Hawk, and Jet Set Radio, I mean, it's totally worth every penny in your bank account. Okay, not really. Maybe get it on sale. Okay, so the topic of today is, was I wrong about Christianity? So there's a lot of sides to this particular question that I feel needs to be addressed before we properly talk about it. So first of all, what do I mean when I say, was I wrong about Christianity? Well, I don't mean I should have been a Christian this whole time. This doesn't mean that I'm now converting to Christianity. It doesn't mean now I suddenly believe in God or I follow Jesus or anything like that. No, what I mean is my perception of Christian people and the Christian religion wrong? If you follow me on my channel, you know that I am quite critical of Christians, and part of that has to do with the fact that I, at one point, used to be a Christian myself. I feel that whenever I do criticize Christianity, there's three major components that are at play here. There's one, the fact that I used to be a Christian myself, therefore I feel that it is my duty to seek revenge against the Christians who have harmed me personally. The second part of this is that I recognize that the harm that I exhibited, I'm not alone in, and that therefore there are people, millions of people throughout history, who have been routinely harmed by systemic Christianity. The third part, which I find to be the most perplexing, however, is I feel that a lot of non-believers of Christianity, particularly non-Christians, and this can range from Jews, Muslims, atheists, Hindus, whatever, so on and so forth, I feel that these people are a little too soft on their criticism of Christianity most of the time. Alright, so let's address these points one by one. So, because I used to be a Christian, I intimately know what it is like to be a Christian, as opposed to, say, somebody who has never been a Christian before. I don't necessarily think those people's opinions are invalid. Of course, I think they have every right to criticize Christianity, given how globally hegemonic Christianity tends to be, but I have that experience of actually being a Christian, and I feel that it is my duty to make right from wrong. That I used to be a diehard Christian. I really was committed to the faith at one point, and now I feel that my whole purpose in life has been taken away from me at the age of 11, and so now I feel that it is absolutely necessary for me to resist it, to warn people, to tell people to steer clear of this religion. You see, I don't particularly like how mainstream Christianity is. When you go to the Dollar Tree, you're not gonna find paraphernalia for say, Hanukkah or something. No, you're gonna find Christians' kids coloring books for Noah's Ark and shit. You're never gonna find a menorah. You're never gonna find anything for Islam or Buddhism, except maybe a Buddha statue that usually white women tend to buy. When I say that, I'm referring to how gentrified the Buddha statue is, particularly in Western culture, for those who are unaware of what I'm talking about. But anyway, have you ever read the Bible before? No, seriously, a real question here. Have you ever actually stopped to actually read the Bible, even when your preacher is probably telling you, hey, you should read the Bible so you can be more connected with Jesus? No. When you read the Bible, can you tell me with a straight face that material is family friendly? This is the same book where in Leviticus it says that you can't have sex with another man if you're a man. But in the book of Genesis, Lot has sex with his daughters. That's in the Bible. incest is in the Bible. Maybe because Christians are so hell-bent on making child marriages legal in the United States, not to mention the increase of family content on porn sites, if you know what I'm talking about, you know. I guess that's just saying that Christians today are kind of consistent with the Bible, only the really fucked up parts of the Bible. Now, when we talk about Christianity, especially nowadays, we're usually talking about Christians and Christian activity in the mainstream today. Like when we talk about, the Seven Mountains Mandate, or Ziklag, or Project 2025, or the evangelical movement, pretty much most of the politicians that are in our political office today trying to make the United States empire into a Christian theocracy. But then there are these people who come out of the bushes just every once in a while, and they'll make their faces known, and they'll be like, Skylar, no, you're misrepresenting us. See, Jesus was a communist. He flipped tables of the moneylenders. He fed 5,000 people fish and bread. Come on, Skylar, that's mutual aid. Don't you get it in your dumb little head? I mean, Jesus was literally hung for disobeying the government. Okay, for that, I have to say one thing. Your whole religion's symbol is a torture device. Like, there's no getting around that. Your whole religion's symbol, at a fundamental level, is centered around persecution. Maybe I do recognize that Jesus as a person at one point existed, and that therefore he was a great guy who did a lot of great things that we should aspire to do today, such as mutual aid and direct action and disobeying the government, so on and so forth. I'm not saying that in and of itself is bad. I think Jesus is definitely a character to aspire to be like. However, the movement that has established after Jesus Christ is a whole other can of worms entirely. Because throughout Christian history, you have like these Christian communes, like the Diggers and the Cathars, who formulated their own communes, and they had pretty progressive ideas and even arguably some abolitionist ideas, like how land should not be private property, or how the sick and the ill and the marginalized should be welcomed in with open arms. But we must always remember, how did that come to be? Well, state religion, or rather, organized religion. Organized religion sounds a lot similar to organized crime, but I digress. Because at the end of the day, who was the ones who were destroying these Christian communes? It certainly wasn't atheists, and it most certainly wasn't the Jews. No, it was most certainly other churches, other institutions, mostly Christian ones, by the way. So, if anything, I consider the Christian religion to be kind of going through an identity crisis. Christianity is very powerful with its social and political influence, don't get me wrong, and it has a lot of members, so it can have a lot of leverage on how things go throughout the whole world. But if we're talking about contemporary, grassroots, bottom-up Christianity, from the people, by the people, for the people, so on and so forth, that in and of itself is a fringe. Like how some people still believe that neo-Nazis are a fringe. Like, okay, in the past, I have compared Christian anarchism, which is an attempt for people to marry Christianity and anarchism together, which I still find to be a contradiction in and of itself. I'll get to that in a moment. But I've compared it to the likes of anarcho-capitalism or national Bolshevism, or even the likes of Strasserism. If you don't know what I'm talking about by referencing these three fringe ideologies, the point is that these fringe ideologies that I just mentioned contradict each other, because nationalism and Bolshevism are contradictory. Anarchism and capitalism are contradictory. Being an anti-Semite and being a Marxist is contradictory. Yes, I am calling Karl Marx and Mikhail Bakunin's own anti-Semitism contradictory. You can't be against the capitalist system and then turn around and blame the Jews. The Jews are not the ones pulling the strings of the capitalist system. I always remind myself that Jewish people are not hegemonic and that Jewish people, transcend class lines, meaning there are rich Jews and that there are also poor Jews. There are working class Jews. there are unionized Jews. There are Jews of multiple different ethnic backgrounds. There are Jews who are straight. There are Jews who are gay. There are Jews who are trans and non-binary, so on and so forth. And if somebody needs to hear it, there are Jews in Palestine. And there are Christians in Palestine, which is the point I'm trying to get at here, is that Christianity in and of itself is not monolithic. And this begins to tear a little bit apart of my own biases here. See, Christianity is the most dominant religion in the world in terms of membership. It is also arguably the most influential religion in the world, politically speaking. You can't look at Project 2025 or Ziklag or the Heritage Foundation and all these other lobbying firms, and you can't tell me with a straight face that all of these attempts to subvert democracy as we know it today is not some secret, shady fucking bullshit, and it is something that is exclusively intrinsic to the Christian movement that exists today in the United States of America right now. Anti-Semites love to, conflate Jews with some cabal, some secret organization. But, we have actual physical evidence to show that Christians behave this way. Some anti-Semites might try to point towards Israel as some kind of example of Jewish people doing that. But even that in and of itself is a Christian project. Sure, you have some Jewish settlers, but it's mostly Christians and Christian nationalists and Christian Zionists and leaders of Western nations like Donald Trump all the way to Winston Churchill who endorse Israel. It's mostly a Christian fucking thing. Because if you ask a Christian, particularly a Christian nationalist, what they think of Israel and what they think of Israel's role is for the Jews, one, they'll obviously tell you that they believe that Israel is where the Jews can go to have their own country and be safe. But if you really ask them, when nobody else is listening, they'll tell you that they want the Jews to be raptured and to, die and, just die off with the rest of the Palestinians. And the Christians are all going to go to heaven. That's their belief. That's their core tenet of their whole belief system. So, yeah, that's kind of my issue here. On the one hand, I do want to give Christians the benefit of the doubt to kind of judge individuals based on their own character, so on and so forth. I feel like I'm, quoting Martin Luther King right now, how ironic I'm talking about this. But every time I do, I always have some other Christian nationalist motherfucker waddling towards me and being like, see, you were a Christian this whole time. You just needed to find Jesus in your heart. Now you can go back to church, read the Bible, sit down, obey, and never question God ever again. See, that in and of itself alienates the shit out of me. Because if I fucking try to give Christians any fucking legroom to articulate themselves, one of these fucking goddamn freaks is gonna come to me and try to pull that shit on me. Be like, yeah, see, you were a Christian this whole time. You just need to join our cult and then you'll just get molested again. Which, by the way, that's an issue within the church that while they do tend to raise more awareness towards it and they do tend to pay the families settlement fees, that's an issue that still exists today, and it is an issue that the church in and of itself has refused to meaningfully address. So that's one of those other reasons why I am very hostile towards Christians. Because while that is going on, you have the other side of the dichotomy here, where you have progressive Christians, liberals, communists, anarchists, socialists. I know those are not the same thing. I'm just giving a general umbrella for the sake of argument here. Those people will then frame the teachings of Jesus in a more progressive light, which, again, I appreciate. And I mean, that makes sense. It is consistent with the stories that I have read as a kid about Jesus. So it just makes sense that people would analyze Jesus' actions in that way, but then they always fall short of being able to meaningfully address some of the shortcomings and downfalls and really the critical fucking flaws of modern, today-ass fucking Christianity. Sure, maybe they'll be able to criticize it, but in terms of addressing it as an issue, I don't know. I feel like there's not really enough being done about that. Like, for one, the church has tax exemption status. I don't know if y'all realize, but that's a fucking privilege that churches get to have. And they're not even like a business. Hell, some of them eventually become businesses. Some of them lobby for certain politicians to win, like the Heritage Foundation. Sorry, I just had to clear my throat for a second. I'm not saying that progressive Christianity doesn't exist. It most certainly does. And I'm not saying that Christians are incapable of engaging in mutual aid, direct action, and progressive actions that are necessary in our daily contemporary lives. And I'm also not saying that there aren't Christian organizations and Christian radicals, whether it be today or historically speaking, that are worth noting. There's always going to be Martin Luther King, but there's also going to be John Brown. And of course there's going to be the John Brown Gun Club, which I think specifically the Elm Fork John Brown Gun Club is pretty badass for literally taking firearms to a drag queen story hour to protect the kids inside of it from the alt-right fascists who were trying to shoot up the fucking place. So, you know, credit where it's due, but the John Brown Gun Club isn't explicitly a Christian organization, nor should it be, because it's mostly about doing the actions that John Brown taught us to do. And of course, John Brown sure was influenced by Christianity, but the point of the John Brown Gun Club is not to, accelerate Christianity, it's to accelerate anti-racism and anti-fascism. And I think that's because, ultimately speaking, if the John Brown Gun Club tried to be an explicitly Christian organization, they would lose the plot instantly. And that's because when we think about Christianity today, we don't think about those very radical and progressive actions that Jesus took back in the day, feeding the poor and flipping the tables of the moneylenders and getting lynched for sedition and so on and so forth. No, we think about Marjorie Taylor Greene saying that the California wildfires are caused by the Jewish space lasers, which, what the fuck is even that? And she's an elected official. She's not some nobody who we can just ignore and just try to move on from. No, we have to reconcile with the fact that our political leaders are Christians, specifically make it so you know that they're Christian, and they specifically make it known that they are horrible fucking people. But hey, Jesus was a radical who did mutual aid and direct action and died for your sins. Oh, I'm sorry, I just kind of brought up an actual mainstream Christian talking point mixed in with other liberatory talking points for a second there. That, yeah, Christianity is all about guilt and sin and just anguish and sadness. I mean, that's really what we all associate Christianity with. It's all negative and bad, terrible, scary shit. And then after talking about all of this, I am usually reminded, not even by Christians, but by non-Christians, again, like atheists or agnostics or Jews or Muslims, so on and so forth. They're always quick to remind me, instantly, like as if they have their finger on the button, ready to remind me that Christians are not all that bad. They're not all like this. They're not all Seven Mountains mandate freaks. No. Some of them are good. Some of them, you just have to look for them. You have to go on Plenty of Fish, the application, and just find them. They're probably out there, maybe, I don't know. I assume, right? Like, the world is so massive. There's gotta be, some progressive Christians out there, right? And look, okay, I acknowledge that there are progressive Christians out there, and I want to be friends with them, but you're gonna have to sell me Christianity a little better. I'm so sorry, but I'm 33 as of right now. I've spent a third of my entire fucking life, up until the age of 11, being a Christian, and then spending 2/3 of my life absolutely despising Christianity while also trying at the same time to give Christianity the benefit of the doubt. I've also been one of those people who has said, hey, maybe don't be too hard on the Christians. But it's always the Christians who are always shooting themselves in the foot in this regard. So, yeah, that's where I stand on Christianity. It's not a conclusive stance, I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say that I'm gonna keep trying to see to take other people's opinions and perspectives. But yeah, until then, just understand where I'm coming from and just be patient with me. That's all I ask for. Anyway, thank you for listening and take care, y'all.